Hi, I am Dr. Kaiya Ansorge. Today, I am joining you with Lost&Found, which is an organization that builds resilience and works with suicide prevention on campuses and other communities around the region. So, today we are talking about building our connection to our own soul. This whole workshop has been about transforming social distance into connecting with our soul. So we're trying to focus less on the difficult and negative parts about what's happening now in the world and trying to grow in our own resilience and positivity so that we can respond with great power and joy to the situation at hand. The last few weeks we've been going over some different parts of that and have been building. This week we're going to go over those parts quickly so that you have a recap in case you missed the other workshops. And then we're going to, towards the end, we're going to work on manifestation. I'm going to give you 6 steps for manifestation, and we'll work through those as we go along. So first of all, I want to welcome all of you to join our community, and if you comment, that would be great. Then I'll talk about those as we go along. And as we're going along, I also want you to be aware that this community that we're talking with today comes from different walks of life. Some of us are religious and some of us are secular, and within that religiosity we have a multitude of backgrounds. So I want you all to feel welcome here and to feel free to use the language that works for you. Even the idea of the word manifestation can have some problems, and so we'll talk about that as we go along, about how to think about manifestation in ways that are productive for ourselves and not what our thoughts are about how that connects with other thought trajectories that aren't useful for you. So the previous weeks, on week 1, we worked on the different parts of anxiety, depression, and confusion, because that's kind of a lot of the ways we responded to this whole shift in how we're living right now. How we're living is so strange, and it's such a set-aside time in history. So this is a time that at first can make us feel really either anxious or depressed. That actually, depression might grow as we go along if we don't build resilience along the way. But it also, at the beginning, at the outset, for me at least, was a time of great confusion. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? How is my life configured? And what can I get done during this time? And what is just not possible? So we worked a lot on priorities. And I encourage you to continue with that, because as we build priorities, sometimes they have to shift as we're going along, especially when we've got kids home or we're taking care of someone in our family who's elderly that really can't get out, that we're bringing them food or whatever we need to feed them, and we're also spending a lot of time connecting with our families. This period is so important for doing all the work you want to do with your families. Some of us have great families, and that means embracing them, spending quality time, all of that. Some of us don't have such great families, and we've been trying all of our lives. Well, this is one time that we are, if we want to, we can still try one more time. But this is a very concerted effort that then will give us some answers for how to go forward in our lives. So this period it's monumental. It's not just monumental in history, which it is, but it's also in our own lives. How we live this period is like a little microcosm of how we are living our lives. So we can sort of assess, like, oh, what really is our priority? What are we actually doing? We say this is our priority, and then this is what we're actually doing. How do those sync up? And so we can kind of find out what we really, really want from our lives. For instance, some of us have said, oh, I wish I could work from home. And now that you're working from home, then you might say, you know what? Actually, I kind of like when I worked in an office. Others of us are saying, I wish I were homeschooled. I know that a lot of children have said, oh, I wish I were homeschooled. And now that they're homeschooled, they have a totally different feeling about that. So that's what this period is very much about. The second week, we talked a lot about discovering our truth, and I went through a whole writing exercise plumbing the depths of what brings us truth and integrity to our own being and our own life. And that's an important step so that we can find out what really makes us tick and really gives us that joy. I don't know about for all of you, but for me, going through these weeks has been really good for me to be doing this writing process with you guys, because I have found that I am a lot happier than I was coming into this. Even before the whole social distancing went, I was reacting a lot to so many inputs. Then when social distancing started, I was really confused because I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then as I made myself take some time to write and make my lists and assess where I really was, I found so much joy in that. And people here. So welcome to all of you. I see Sherry, and I see Michelle, and I see Kathy and Angelica and Helga, and William Dale. My goodness, that's from far away. And then okay, very good. Mary and Michelle and Tracy. Awesome. So if you want to leave any comments, you are certainly welcome to do so, and then I will talk about those as we go. So today, we will start by thinking through what we individually have been doing, some of the things that you've seen in your own journals as you're working along. Hopefully you've been taking some notes about some of the high points of the time that you've been spending during social distancing. If not, we will be taking a little bit of time to write about that, so you can list some of the things that you have found yourself doing that you feel good about, and also maybe some of the dreams that you wanted to be working on that you haven't been yet. All of those are fair game. So we're going to set up to do that, and I would like you guys make sure you have your journals and a journal and a pen. Any kind will do. I like really inexpensive ones, because then I don't feel like it's so precious. Right? Then I don't feel like I have to write something important. And I'm starting a new journal, so I'm really excited. I have a few pages left in this old journal, but then I thought, I really want this workshop, when we launch today, I want this to be so that I don't start out with a blank. Sometimes it's really hard to start with a new journal that has all blank pages. And one thing I want to quickly say about that is that what I do is, at the beginning of my journal, I always leave a few blank pages when I'm starting, and then I start a few pages in. The reason I do that is, number one, I don't feel like I'm starting on the first page, and it feels so raw and open. The other thing is that I leave these pages. I should have brought another journal that has this, but anyway, I make on this page, I do sort of all of the prayers and mantras that I want to remember during the time I'm working on this journal. So sometimes I'll say something like, what is the next step? Or follow the flow. Or my personal formula of sleep plus walk plus write plus pray. If I do those 4 things, I feel awesome. So I put those there. And then in here, I'll have some other guidelines, or maybe some goals that I want for this particular period. And then I make what I call a boundary box. And I think that's really useful. You can make a boundary box that tells people what you will and will not be doing for them, because some of us tend to do too much for other people. So, oh my goodness, Nick, hi. And Becky, hi. And Donald, nice to see you guys. So get out your journals, and we're going to spend about, I'm not going to give a whole lot of time for this. Let's do about 5 minutes of writing you're going to answer right now. You're going to write in your journal, and I'll say go when it's time. We're going to write down things that you have been doing while you're social distancing, what you've been doing, what you will likely remember from this period. But then you can also go further and ask, well, let's just stay with that right now. Let's stay with, because that's going to be further on. Right now, we're going to summarize some of the things that you have accomplished, and what you have been doing, actually, like some of the things that you've been doing that aren't necessarily what you call accomplishments, and what you will remember from this period. So here we go. On your marks, get set, go. I see a few more people joined, so I'll just repeat the questions for the journaling right now. It is, what have you accomplished? That's number one. What have you been doing? And what will you remember during this period of social distancing? Now, if you would like, you can start to, if you would like to, you can start adding this to the comments section if you'd like, because I'd love to hear what you guys have been doing during this. It's actually a time that we can get ideas from each other as well. So start winding your list up. We're almost done. Okay, so now I'm going to wind us up. And if you want to share any of your things that you've been doing, that would be amazing. So for me, of course, I've been homeschooling my son. That's something that not only will I remember, but I actually am super glad I've been doing. I did it a little bit when he was younger, and I really liked it, but he wanted to go back to school, and that was great too, because we have a great school system here that I totally love. But it's been really fun to do it with him a little bit older, because now he's really into school more than he was the first time. The first time was like pulling teeth. This time it's easier. It just, we just get up and we do it. And then it's been really fun. So that's been super special. But that has also been a challenge because some of the things that I put on my list that I would like to get done aren't going to get done as quickly and easily because I do want to spend all this time homeschooling and playing board games with my family and things like that. So it's been a real balance. But as I've been going along, I found that that balance is getting a little easier, and I hope it is for you as well. So we're going to move on to the next thing. And the next question I ask is, what do you want to remember during this period? And have you been doing that? If not completely, have you been blocked? And what is going on there? How do you want to fill up your upcoming days? Because this is the last session, we're kind of setting the stage for what goes on, beyond this, right? So beyond this, we're going to set some little goals to go forward that are completely reasonable ones. Because now we've had some time. We realize how much time we have. We realize how many pressures we have from other spaces. Some of us are much more busy than our regular life, and some of us are much less busy than our regular life. And both of those can cause stress. So this period we have a lot to manage stress-wise. And how do we allow ourselves to realize that this period sets the stage for the rest of our lives? And that's true every day, right? But part of what this workshop is about is becoming very aware of that necessity that we face each day. So we're going to do 5 minutes. Oh, wait, I've got a few more. This is what other people have been doing. Becky has been doing, hi Becky, has been doing yard work and some landscaping projects, small ones, helping pass the time. We've been trying to do some landscaping too. That's actually a really great one. Oh, hi Silvana. And so we've been trying to do some of that too, but whatever. It comes and it goes. So, okay, we're going to write again. I'm going to set us up, and you guys right now are going to write down what you want to remember. We're going to just do this as short. When we get into the manifestation one, we're going to write for longer periods of time. So right now we're still just doing kind of the background. So I'm going to set us up. It is, I'll say on your marks, get set, go, and we will write for about 5 minutes. So with this one, it's going to be a little bit longer. So as you allow yourself to brainstorm. This last one, I kind of stayed in the list making zone because I knew it was so short. So as we move into this next one, I invite you to write for a little bit longer. I think I'll make it 7 minutes. What would you like to manifest? And that means not manifest, sorry, we're not there yet. What would you like to remember during this period? Got it? Okay, so on your marks, get set, go. Now, as you're working with what you want to remember, you can also ask yourself, why do you want to remember that? What is it about it? So drop down a little deeper. Allow yourself to go a little deeper and think about why you want to remember that. Okay, start winding it up. Okay, so I'm super excited. There's some comments here I want to go through. Okay, so Nick said that he's been coming up with several of the good things that have been coming out of this. I think that's a really important thing, is to always keep a list. That's why journaling is so great. You can actually have lists in there. You can write longhand too to find out things a little bit more deeply, but keeping lists of what are the good things. So there, you hear about gratitude journals. I usually do them because I like to do things with a little bit more, I don't know, spirituality around them. So sparkle dust, I call it. But anyway, so I like to make it more of like a list of miracles is what I call it, but whatever. everybody has their own definitions. So as you are keeping those lists, it makes you more conscious of what are the elements that are bringing you joy, and it puts your attention on them again instead of the bad stuff. So it retrains your mind. It's sort of the way we use meditation to keep coming back to, in meditation is coming back to your breath. But if you're doing a gratitude journal, you keep coming back to what you're grateful for. Or if you're doing a miracle journal, you're doing whatever makes you feel amazing, or you're doing something like whatever surprises you. So you can do it any way you want to, but one of the reasons that journaling is good is that it keeps redirecting your attention back to the thing you actually want to be thinking about. You probably don't want to be thinking about these other things, so crowd them out of your mind and pay attention to what you actually want to remember. So they've been doing puzzles and it's a form of mindfulness meditation. Now, I would love to do puzzles. Unfortunately, my family is not interested. So we've been doing a lot of board games, which is great. I used to not like board games, but there's a whole bunch of new ones now that are can be very long. Like we've been working on one called Lewis and Clark now for 3 days maybe. So I like those a lot. That's awesome. I want to do a puzzle with you, Nick. So anyway, Tracy. Oh, she wants to create an adult tap exercise class for those who don't really move much. Create a women's group for meditation and movement. Oh, I love that. These are all things that people really need too. And so to have things that we can do that help us reach out to others during this period. And Silvana, you've been doing yoga and hiking. I've been doing a little bit of hiking, not enough yoga. I always forget to do that. You're right. I should do some yoga. I've been feeling a little, yeah, like my body is getting a little like, oh, my idea of yoga is wrestling my child. This is not, it's not gentle. Anyway, so we've got a lot more people here. Exciting. Hi, Alicia and Levon, Lise and Dave and Vanjie and Jana. Very exciting. So very cool. So we are going through and journaling about what we've been doing during this period. And we are about to move into the 6 steps of manifesting your perfect life. And I say perfect, but I don't really mean perfect. Perfect can hang us up because we think that it has to be something sort of done. In fact, if you think about perfect is always something that is completed, but perfection is actually also just what is sort of magical in your life. And having a life that is one that fills you with joy and amazement every day, not only is it's just possible. It is possible, but it's a practice. It's a habit that we have to get into, and we have to find ways into that practice. So first, before we get into the manifestation part, I wanted to ask, as I was coming through this, I was wondering, I started looking at what I wanted to remember, and there were all these details of like, oh, I wanted to remember playing games, I wanted to remember homeschooling, I wanted to remember writing and going for long walks in the sunshine. But I also wanted to remember that this was the period that I kind of got back on track and brought a very habitual attention to bringing bliss into my everyday life. Luckily for me, I've had a period in my life where I was able to practice doing the things that really help me sort of trigger that place of happiness on a regular basis. And I know that it's durable because it was a period that I was actually taking care of my mom when she was dying, which was a really, really hard time. And yet every single day I got to bliss anyway. So I know that it's possible even when we're going through difficult times. And I'm wondering if any of you have a formula that you've come up with. If you do have a formula, I would love to hear it about a period in your life where things were just clicking for you, where there are little elements in that might have been habits that you could bring into your life from here on out. So if you have those, definitely share them. Oh, and Brad says he has been drawing and painting. That is super, super fun. So yes, I hope that other people have been drawing and painting. Those are two things that I always want to do, and they end up going a little farther down my list, unfortunately. I don't get around to them. So that's something I'd like to do. So my formula, as I mentioned a little earlier, is if every day, if I get enough sleep, if I go for a walk, if I pray a little bit, and I write a little bit. If I do those 4 things, it is guaranteed that I'm going to feel happy the rest of the day. Nothing will be able to push my buttons after that. That's a lot of things on a list, so it's a little hard to get to all of them, but I am thinking that I need to make sure that I do all of them, because when I do, my day actually unfolds more gracefully. I am more productive, and not only am I more productive, but I'm also super excited about life, so that when I'm productive, I'm getting more done in a good way, and it's benefiting others in a more in a better way. So I think that it's really important to start to think about those formulas that we have. So we are going to now start into the 6 steps of how to manifest your perfect life. And when I say manifest, I'm not talking about necessarily like the law of attraction. I am not necessarily talking about miracles in a religious sense. You can take the word manifest the way you want to take it. It can be something about how you build habits that lead to what you want for your life. And your perfect life is not something that is out there. Your perfect life is what happens on a daily basis. The way that we construct our life now is what shows what will happen in the future. Even if we attained a goal, if we have not built in the ability to enjoy that goal is for nothing. Because when we reach the goal, we will be in such the habit of waiting for happiness that we won't be able to experience happiness. So it's extremely important to build into our daily life the practice of feeling happiness, the practice of feeling joy. I mean a deep joy. I don't mean hedonistic pleasure type stuff, right? Where you're talking about video games, you might enjoy playing it for the moment, but afterwards you feel kind of zapped, but not like that tired in a happy way, but necessarily, but more like, what did I just do with my time kind of way? And what am I doing now? Feeling more confused. I'm talking about building that feeling of you're so alive and you're excited about life. And as we build that, it's like a muscle. So as we build that, we have to build it every single day, so that when we do get to sort of goal points, we can actually feel that joy, but also those goal points are less important. The goal is actually in the here and now, the present moment. It's not about some sort of future. Hope is good because it helps us know where we're aiming, but hope can start to get addictive, where we start to do too much future thinking. So anyway, so as we're manifesting our perfect life in 6 steps, number 1, I'll go through these and then we'll start writing on them. Number 1 is get clear on what really is your perfect life. Now that's tricky because everybody's perfect life is different, and so many of us have been told, or we think there are things that might make our life feel rich or wonderful that actually wouldn't work for us at all. If we had a brand new Lamborghini, if they're even made anymore, who knows, out in our driveway, that would not give me any joy at all. In fact, all I would think about is like, if I thought about it at all, I would think about, oh, I hope, hail doesn't fall on it if we don't put it in the garage, that kind of thing, right? So for me, a car is not going to do it. So, but for my brother who races cars, a car might do it. And so we each have something that is particular to us, and we have to be careful not to get sucked in by what we think should make us happy. So, okay, number 1, get clear on what really is your perfect life. Number 2, what is holding you back? Number 3, are you ready to clear the blocker? Number 4 is to clear the blockers. Blockers. Number 5, becoming aware of perfection. What does that even mean? Becoming aware of when you've actually got it right. You're right. And number 6 is nurturing bliss. What are the nurturing steps? How do you continue that in your life? So here we go. I wanted to get back to some comments before we start writing on these. Okay, and so Tracy said she wants to do something new that you weren't afraid to try. Let go and let God assist. Love it. And that, I think, is super huge as we go forward in life. Some of you out there are very young. And so for you, trying something new is kind of what you've been expecting yourself to do for a while. But when you get to my age, sometimes you can forget. And you can also be afraid that you'll feel awkward or something like that, or look awkward. But actually, that's how we grow and learn, is to try new things and be incredibly awkward. That's what we're here to do. That's why we've got skin and bones. We are here to physically try things and physically fall down and get some bruises. That's what we're here about. Able to get through Susan says, able to get through the toughest times in my life by staying active daily. Okay, here we go. Active daily, creating, even cooking counts for her, and remembering to reach out and connect with close friends and family. I love that. And I kind of added that on the end of mine as family, because I always have that as sort of an underwriting, but I don't even put it on the list. I don't know why. I think because that's the one I tend to make sure is always in place, so I don't have to, I don't know. Somehow that doesn't get on that part of my list. I don't know why, but I should. Anyway, so yes, for me, cooking doesn't do it. When I cook, it's totally, sometimes I'm kind of like, oh, it's okay. I don't use recipes because I can't follow the directions, but it still doesn't make me get to that point. I have to write. And even when I draw and paint, it doesn't quite get me to bliss the same way. And that's why it ends up being farther down on the list, unfortunately. Maybe when I retire. So Ruth, I'm the same way. Walking, writing, good sleep are necessary for her to function well. And I know she prays a lot because, Ruth, I know you're a pastor. So yes, that is true. I think that those are the ones for me. And good sleep, unfortunately, is way too many hours. It's really embarrassing. I have to have almost 9 hours of sleep. Yikes. And Michelle, hi. I know, Michelle, for you, one of the things to get to bliss is to do some praying. And that's also a very important one to keep in mind. Okay, so here we go. We are going to make sure you have your journals out. Jesse, hi, nice to see you again this week. And Jesse, I know you're an artist, so I hope you're doing some drawing or painting like Susan is. But we're going to get out our journals. So get your journals out. Get ready. We're going to work through these steps that I gave you, these 6 steps that we're going to take forward in the next few weeks. Let me get this out of the way here. Of manifesting your perfect life. So, number 1, get really clear on what is your perfect life. Now, if you want to, during this journaling exercise, you may take issue with the idea of perfect. That's totally fine. But what is your perfect life? What is the kind of life that you would want to live on a daily basis? So we're going to do that for only 5 minutes because we've got some ground to cover here. Okay, so on your marks, get set, go. Okay, start winding it up. And I'd love to hear if any of you have anything that you wrote down that you found out what about your perfect life. If you could send that on those comments, that would be great. For me, my perfect life was I went through the whole day and kind of talked about, getting up late, taking a leisurely bath, that kind of stuff, and then writing and things like that. But I also found that as I was going along, I was writing, and I went through my whole day of what I like to have. And that's what I've been trying to build that into my days now, because they're a little bit more flexible in terms of the timing. So I've been trying to build in most of it. Not all of it can be my most ideal because of social distancing. Then I found out, oh, I need to go on from just what my perfect day is, because that's what's normal for a day at home. But what else do I want in my life, my bigger life? And of course, I love to travel and go on adventures with my family, and I love to do that. But I also found that I have a big fear of being left behind. I even had dreams about that last night. That's my regular nightmares, that I'll get left out, left behind. So don't ever tell me what you're doing that's exciting. I'll just feel left out. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so that's kind of what I found in my perfect life. Now the second step is, after you really know what your perfect life is, and maybe you won't finish it here, you can finish it later. But the second step is to find out what is holding you back. Now, it might be that you think you want something in your perfect life, but it's actually not right now. It's something that is your perfect life, but it's for who you are, yes, but it's you 20 years from now. It's just that our soul is timeless, and so our soul thinks of all the things we want to do, but it sees it over the whole breadth of our life. It doesn't necessarily say, oh, this is timed right now is this time, and this next period is this time. So we need to think about what is the right timing for now. And then we also need to tell our soul and promise our soul and build the faith that if we will do what is meant for us, give us this day our daily bread, and we do what's part for our soul right now. That will help our soul have faith that we will attend to its needs at a later date when it needs the next thing. Oh, we don't need this on right now. And so what you might find is that your perfect life right now is different than what your perfect life will be someday. And so what is holding you back? When we ask this question, I want you to write down anything that is blocking you, or that you think is an impediment to the things that you want in your regular life. And I want you to write down all of those things that frustrate you, because that's also a form of blocking. And now that can be humans. So scratch it out when you're done. That's fine, if you want to, and realize that that's okay. Part of what we're feeling now is we have different elements in our life. Some of them are amazing, our loved ones, and to realize that if we have a goal that has something to do with them, we're allowed to give that time. And sometimes, especially if they're children, those children will be gone. And so at a certain point in our life, and when that happens, that's when that next stage comes, and that's okay too. So we are going to write for a few minutes here. Oh, wait, sorry, I want to do one perfect life here from Nick. He says, in my perfect life, I am more present with my family as I'm at work with my clients. This is an example of where this pandemic has been absolutely helpful for me. I think that's true for a lot of us, is that our work is so loud and so clamorous that so often it's hard, because our family doesn't seem to need us as much. They do need us, and they need us in a super helpful way, in a healthy way, in a super loving way, for a lot of us. And yet our work, because it might be something, it's just so demanding that it's hard to recalibrate and be fully present at home. And I find that now working from home, because I've got students, I've got other things going on. So I have to remember, okay, I'm done with this now, and I'm going to switch gears. But it's really, really hard to do that back and forth and to get that balance right so that we get enough time with both. Absolutely. Okay, so let's do our blockers. I'm going to give us just a few minutes to write about blockers so that we can go on to the next stage here. So this one is, what is holding you back? Number 2. Okay, so we're going to wind up on that one, and I would like you to write in the comments, if you have any, what your blockers were, if you're willing to share that. So one of the things that I think is so interesting about writing and journaling is that you always find out new things that you didn't really know before. So as I was talking to you about this dream that I had last night, and I have regularly, is that I have a fear that I'm going to be left behind. And this is something that is also one of my earliest memories. I was left behind when I was 3.5 years old for something I wanted to do. And this is one of my biggest fears. It's kind of a recurring one. And what my blocker was is that sometimes there's a couple things. My things that are holding me back is that there are a lot of things I think I should do. So that's a social pressure we all have. And with those shoulds, I have to be willing to say no. But underneath of the saying no, when my unwillingness to say no, I said, was what may be holding me back. But my unwillingness to say no is actually rooted in that fear of being left out. And so it's this deep fear that triggers all these different ways. And I didn't ever think about that my connection to the shoulds and the unwillingness to say no, unless I regularly remind myself to say no, is actually seated in that bigger fear of being left out and left behind. And that's why I think writing is so powerful. We discover things every time. Okay, number 3, step 3 is, are you ready to clear the blockers? We're only going to give a few minutes to this, and it's kind of your gut answer. So as you are writing you are writing your blocks up above. Number 3 is, are you ready? You might not be. So actually feel your body. Make sure you feel fully. What is your body saying to each one of these blocks? If you have a list of blocks, that's really helpful because you can actually put your finger on each one. And does your body say yes or no to getting rid of those? Start writing. Okay, so have you gone through and felt each one of those and see if you're ready to get rid of them? It's very curious because so often I'll have some sort of frustration or block, and when I actually ask myself if I'm ready to get rid of it, I'm not ready. So I'm not quite, lots of times I'm not quite ready for the next step. And that's okay. It's actually good to know that sometimes we think that we're ready for the next step, but we're actually not. And that's okay. That's part of why we live the long life that we live. If we could get it all done on day 2 of our life, we wouldn't live very long because we wouldn't need to. Part of why we live this whole life is to do lots of different things. And so as we're doing them, we will have different stages that we're ready for and other ones we're not ready for. So this one is, so as I was going through my blocks, this particular time, lots of times I'm not ready, but this particular time I was pretty ready. I was saying, yes, I am ready to get rid of this block. And you don't go to the next block, to the next phase of this. We would skip over the next phase if you weren't ready. So if you are ready to clear the blockers, or whichever ones you're ready to clear, then we would do stage 4. Did anybody have any blockers? Let's see, not yet. So, okay. As we're, right before we clear them, are you ready to clear the blockers? You can also feel that as a hesitation. It's going to be that soft, just a hesitation. So you think that you, say for instance, painting. You really want to paint. But if you say to yourself, you're like, am I ready to clear the block from that, whatever that block is, say it's childcare or something like that. You're like, oh, I'm not get rid of that. Now, there are other ways to do that. If painting's a big one that you want to do, then what you do is you do micro movements to start doing that, like where you can do ones that aren't the real thing. You just do practicing, or you do what I call approximations of the goal. And so you do approximations of that perfect life. You don't have to do it the whole hog. And so you can do an approximation. And so that would look like, for writing, that would mean just, sometimes writers do this. They write on napkins because it's not as precious. So you write in something that isn't precious. Or you don't write on the computer because the computer means, oh, I'm serious about this. With painting, it would be something like you paint on material that isn't necessarily what you would use as a finished product. So that kind of thing. So you can start to do things that are, if the block is that you feel like maybe once you would start, you would never stop, that kind of feeling too. So it can feel a little bit overwhelming. So there's lots of different ways that we can have hesitations. And it's about asking the hesitations themselves, because there's something underneath that. And that's what you need to find, because you might find that you actually would be okay with working. You just weren't ready for this part of the goal, but you're actually okay with this part of the goal. When I was taking care of my child when he was really young, one of the things was that I would say, oh, I can get ready for a career, but I'm not ready to have a career. And so then I was able to write and things like that. I didn't get stopped from the whole process because I said, okay, I can work on this piece, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily leads to this piece that would be too much for me right now. I really want to be here doing this and being fully inserted in this life. I'm not ready for that one. Okay, so as we move forward, the next one is stage 4 is to clear the blockers. Now, how do you do that? If you get really clear on the blockers, there are several ways to do it. We're not going to do it here because we're starting to run out of time. And as we clear the blockers, there are some ways that you can do that. They're more ritualistic usually. So one of them is you can write them down and you can rip them out, tear them up, you can burn them, you can just put X's through a blocker. So you might say time is a blocker. So you write time, you might even draw time and then you put an X through it. Like that's not going to be a blocker anymore. So these are almost like, I think of them as, it's sort of like getting rid of spells that are cast on us. One of the ones that I think is a fun one to experiment with is called emotional freedom technique, and it's this tapping thing. I think it is, sometimes they take it too far. I don't believe in all of that. But what I do love about it is it's sort of this weird ritualistic thing where you move things through your body and out of them. But at the same time, telling yourself that you love yourself, even if you have this thing. So procrastination, and then you tap. Even though I am a procrastinator, I totally and completely love myself. Or even though I do this procrastination, I still totally completely love myself, and you tap and it goes away. So you can do different things like that for to try. And part of the fun of rituals is that they're physical and you can make up which ones work for you. And by making something physical, that symbolic act really gives it some attention and some care. And when you do it, you can also, it puts it out of you so that you're not, so it's not all stuck inside of you anymore. The other thing with all of these blockers is that you might not want to fully destroy them. They actually might be something that you want to keep. And so you can have it a little bit more like where you recognize whatever is blocking you and accepting it and giving it voice. That's why a journal's good. You give it voice and then you're allowed to move on because you've actually paid attention to it, and then it'll release its hold over you. So that's how you clear the blockers, and that's homework. So you can work on clearing the blockers. The next one is number 5, becoming aware of perfection. So as you become aware of perfection, what does that mean? As you're working on becoming aware of perfection, this is the bringing to consciousness the elements in your life that are working, the ones that you want to keep. This is your treasure chest. So you can write down the things that you love, and you can actually put them into a treasure chest or into sort of a sacred urn, or you can put them somewhere. I don't ever do this because I always get embarrassed. I don't know, because I live with other people. But you can put them on like little sticky notes and put them on your mirror. The things that you love that are in your life that you want to keep there. And so as you do that, you become more and more aware of all the elements of your life that you deeply treasure. So that's that stage. Nick's blocker is laziness. And you know what? Laziness in your case, because you work so hard, that's actually just your body trying to catch up. And I think that so often we do feel like we're lazy, but that's also our culture that always says we have to be working all the time. If your body is feeling lazy, especially in your case, Nick, what I think is probably you just need to lay down and hopefully just snuggle with your kids and be totally lazy, like watching TV, whatever, reading books if you want to be industrious, but really trying to be as lazy as possible is awesome. Snuggling animals, whatever. That's part of what we're doing right now. Um, yeah, so I want to make sure that when you do this, when you become aware of the perfection that is currently in your life right now, that you keep note of that. And then the last step is nurturing bliss. Nurturing bliss. So what does that mean? Nurturing bliss means building that muscle of practice, of habit, that you start approximating your perfect life. And as you approximate it, and as you become aware of the perfection, and you start to train your attention and your mind onto what is working, and you start to commit more and more fully to that way of life, you will start to, and this is not, oh, I think it might happen. This is the formula, that you will find things that work for you, that are your little elements that will draw you into more and more happiness. It's a cycle, and it will grow until you are completely able to feel a full amount of joy, like as much as you can possibly hold within you. And I mean, and it won't hold, it goes out, of course. But as you're building that ability, it gets the ball rolling. But then also what happens is that your soul, when you're not listening to it, when you're pushing it down and having other priorities that are other people's priorities, other people's needs, other people's shoulds, whatever it is, or your own shoulds that you have from who knows wherever. Why do we create shoulds for ourselves? It's just ridiculous, this bully in our brain. So as we stop doing that and start to build a life that is full of this ability to see and perceive what really truly gives us joy, we won't get lazy. What actually happens is we will speed up, but also what will happen is that our soul will start to feel loved again. It'll have faith in us. And when our soul has faith in us, it hooks into what I think of as its ability to sort of be a conduit for the divine. It is a conduit for power. It is a conduit for energy. Our bodies are sort of limitless receptacles for energy and power. And when we do sort of the habits and the work, I love to call it work, but when we do the habits that help us train our mind to that joy, our energy actually multiplies incredibly. Our soul is just waiting for us. And when we allow ourselves to truly open to our soul, that's when we really wake up. So I've gone over time, and so I need to wind up, and I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank Lost and Found for being together with us, and all of you that joined today. I am so pleased, and if any of you want to contact me after this, I would be delighted to see all of you again, so many of my friends. And if you want to, I'll keep you posted for any future workshops. I'm going to take a little break and make sure I do my writing and do a lot of the things that are the introverted side, part of myself that I've been neglecting in the last few months. And so I'm going to do some of that, and then I'll be getting back into doing some sort of something again. Maybe not Facebook Live, maybe something a little bit more interactive. So take care and have a wonderful, blessed Easter weekend and Passover, and all of you, blessings, and have a wonderful week.